I stood at attention, Colonel Colin Richmond, as the morning sun cast long shadows across Fort Braxton's parade ground. At 62, after 40 years of unwavering military service, I commanded respect with my steel gray eyes and weathered features that bore the scars of battles long fought. My chest was adorned with ribbons from 3 deployments decades ago, including the Distinguished Service Cross, the nation's second highest military decoration. It was a life built on disciplined sacrifice and an unbreakable code of honor, one that had carried me from the trenches to the command post. Outstanding performance review, again Colin, General Howard Atkins said, sliding the folder across his mahogany desk. The Joint Chiefs are talking about your promotion to Brigadier General. It's the capstone to a remarkable career. You've earned it, especially as you approach retirement. My expression remained stoic, though internally a deep satisfaction coursed through me. I'd clawed my way up from an enlisted grunt to field-grade officer through sheer determination and tactical brilliance, every mission and decision calculated to protect my country and secure my legacy. Thank you, sir, I replied. I serve at the pleasure of my nation. That's why I'm recommending you for the Pentagon posting, he continued. It's time you bring your wisdom to the big leagues one last time. As I drove through the gates of my suburban home, I spotted my wife Vicky's silver Mercedes in the driveway alongside an unfamiliar black BM, but strange she hadn't mentioned expecting company. Vicky Richmond, née Dodge, had been the epitome of a military spouse for 35 years, gracious, politically astute, with connections from her father's construction empire that had opened doors complementing my own achievements. Our marriage had been a partnership forged in the fires of duty, or so I'd believed. I entered quietly through the side door, hearing muffled voices drifting from upstairs. Vicky's laughter floated down, followed by a man's deeper chuckle. My hand instinctively moved toward my sidearm before I caught myself, old habits from the field. Instead, I ascended the stairs silently, my special operations training from years past making each step soundless despite the weight of age. Colin's so predictable, Vicky's voice carried through the bedroom door, laced with a disdain I'd never heard before. Always by the book, always following orders. He has no idea what real passion feels like anymore. Unlike you, came the male response, one I recognized immediately. Major Thomas Delgado, my own deputy commander, the man I'd mentored, promoted, and trusted with classified operations in recent years. When are you going to leave him? Thomas pressed. This sneaking around is getting old. Soon, she replied. His retirement promotion to general will come with a nice settlement when I divorce him. Then we can be together properly. My jaw clenched, but my mind stayed ice cold. 40 years of military strategy had taught me that emotion was weakness, and weakness destroyed lives. Betrayal like this cut deep, striking at the core of my self-respect and the oaths I'd sworn. Instead of bursting through the door, I retreated to my study and began planning. Honor demanded justice, and I would deliver it with the precision of a lifetime's experience. That evening, Vicky greeted me with her usual kiss on the cheek, her performance as flawless as ever. How was your day, honey? Productive, I replied, studying her face for any tell, a flush averted, eyes, nervous fidgeting. She gave nothing away. Atkins is pushing my promotion through. That's wonderful, she said, her enthusiasm ringing hollow now that I knew her true motives. We should celebrate. Over dinner, I played the devoted husband while mentally cataloging every lie, every deception. Vicky spoke of her day lunch with old friends, errands, social engagements, all fabrications delivered with the practiced ease of someone who'd mastered the art of facade over decades. Later, as Vicky slept beside me, I stared at the ceiling, formulating my response. In the military, betrayal wasn't just personal, it was a capital offense. Those who broke faith faced court-martial imprisonment or worse. Civilian justice might be softer, more forgiving, but I, Colin Richmond, was neither civilian nor forgiving. My self-respect, forged in 40 years of service, demanded retribution. Before we continue, we would love to know where in the world you are from. Let us know in the comments section below. The next 3 weeks transformed me from a devoted husband into a relentless hunter, drawing on the tactical skills honed over 40 years in military intelligence. Age had slowed my steps, but not my mind. Every move was deliberate, every piece of evidence meticulously cataloged. I installed hidden cameras in key spots around the house and office, placed GPS trackers on their vehicles, and delved into financial records that revealed hotel charges and unexplained expenses. The betrayal burned in my chest like an old wound reopened, but I channeled it into cold precision, reminding myself that self-respect demanded I expose every layer of their deceit before striking. Tama Delgado at 48 proved to be a creature of habit, his routines as predictable as a poorly secured perimeter. Tuesday and Thursday afternoons, he met Vicky at the downtown Marriott. Friday evenings, they rendezvoused at his apartment while I was ostensibly at my weekly poker game with fellow veterans. But as I dug deeper, something far more sinister emerged than mere adultery. Thomas had been funneling details of my missions to outsiders' bank records, showed payments from a shell company tied to defense contractors who'd coincidentally won bids on operations I'd planned. The realization hit like a sniper's bullet. This wasn't just personal betrayal, it was treason, endangering lives I'd sworn to protect. My pulse quickened with a mix of rage and resolve. How dare he use my trust as a weapon against the country I'd bled for, interesting reading major. I said, standing in Thomas's office doorway, with arms crossed, watching him jump and nearly spill coffee over the classified documents on his desk. "Colonel, I didn't hear you come in," he stammered, his face paling under the fluorescent lights. "That's because I didn't want you to." My voice carried the edge of a lifetime's interrogations, making him shift uncomfortably. "Those are operational plans for next month's exercise. Funny how details keep leaking to the press before we execute." "Sir, I can explain." "I'm sure you can." I stepped closer, filling the room with my presence. "Tell me, Thomas, what's more valuable, your career or your conscience?" His face went ashen. "I'm not sure what you're implying." "I'm not implying anything. I'm stating facts. Someone's been selling information, and that someone has access to my planning sessions." I picked up a document, casually studying it as if it held his fate, which it did. The question is, are they a fool or a traitor? That evening, I found Vicky in our bedroom applying makeup before her supposed book club meeting. "You look elegant as always," I said, watching her reflection in the mirror, my heart heavy with the weight of our shared decades now tainted. "Thank you," she smiled, but her eyes stayed fixed on her lipstick, avoiding mine. "I've been thinking about us lately." I continued, sitting on the bed behind her, the years pressing on me like an invisible burden. About our marriage, our future, especially now as I near the end of my service. Vicky's hand paused momentarily before resuming. "What about it?" "I realize I haven't been the husband you deserve. Always focused on duty, always putting the military first, even as the years slipped by." She turned to face me, surprise flickering across her features, lined now with the subtle marks of time we'd both accumulated. "Colin, what's brought this on?" "The promotion," I said. "When I make general, things will change. More time at home, better stability in our twilight years. I want to make things right between us before it's too late." For a moment, guilt flashed across her face, so brief that only my trained eye caught it amid the wrinkles of our shared history. Then her mask returned. "I appreciate that, but some things can't be fixed with good intentions, can they?" I stood, moving to the window overlooking our manicured lawn, a symbol of the life we'd built. "I suppose that depends on whether both people want the same thing." The words hung heavy, laced with the sorrow of age and unspoken regrets. After Vicky left for her meeting, I drove to a secure spot 20 miles outside town where Eugene Davidson waited in an unmarked van. At 60, my old Delta Force comrade turned private contractor nodded grimly as I approached. "You get what I need. Your wife's been busy, and Delgado too," he said, handing me a tablet with bank records, phone logs, and photographs. "But it's worse than you thought. They're not just entangled personally. She's been feeding him details about your schedule movements, classified briefings. Delgado's passing it to foreign contacts. I studied the evidence, my expression unchanging, though a storm raged inside. How long? 2 years minimum, maybe longer. Eugene's voice was steady like in our old ops. And you're certain about the foreign connection? Dead certain. We've got recordings of Delgado on encrypted calls with a handler. They knew about your Pentagon assignment before it was official. I handed back the tablet, the pieces falling into place like a well-executed strategy. Then we proceed to phase 2. But as I drove home, questions gnawed at me. How deep did this rot go? And what would be the cost of uprooting it? The Officers Club at Fort Braxton hummed with Friday evening energy, a familiar backdrop to the rituals of military life that had defined my existence for decades. I nursed a bourbon, the amber liquid warming my throat as I observed Thomas Delgado at 48 schmoozing superiors, with the charm of a man half his age, glad-handing, laughing, embodying the loyal subordinate. The irony twisted in my gut like a knife. He was a master at feigning allegiance, but I saw through it now, my strategic mind already several moves ahead in this game of shadows. "Colin," General Atkins boomed, approaching with his trademark vigor despite his own advancing years. "Just a man I wanted to see. Your Pentagon assignment came through. You'll be briefing the Secretary of Defense next month." Congratulations rippled from nearby officers, but I caught Thomas's subtle reaction, eyes tightening, smile forced. He was already plotting how to profit from this, the traitor. "Thank you, sir," I said evenly, a surge of quiet pride mixing with the bitterness of betrayal. "I'm honored." "Your country's honored to have you," Atkins replied, clapping my shoulder. "Vicky must be thrilled about the move to Washington, a fitting end to your storied career." "She's processing it." I responded carefully, my thoughts drifting to the legacy I'd built, over 40 years now threatened by those closest to me. This assignment wasn't just a posting, it was the culmination of my life's work, and I wouldn't let their greed tarnish it. Later that evening in my study, I reviewed Eugene's files, the evidence of Vicky's complicity and Thomas's treason weighing heavy on my soul. Her betrayal stung deepest, eroding the foundation of our 35 years together. But his was unforgivable, endangering American lives for personal gain, weaponizing the trust I'd extended. My secure phone buzzed a text from an unlisted number. "Package delivered as requested, E. Phase 2 activated." A grim smile crossed my face. The trap was baited. The following Monday, I summoned Thomas to my office for what seemed a routine briefing. "Close the door," I instructed, my voice low. "What I'm about to share doesn't leave this room." He complied, settling in with feigned ease. "I've been selected for a special assignment." I began dropping my tone to a whisper, the thrill of the ploy quickening my pulse. Something that could shift the balance in the Middle East, one last mark on my legacy before retirement. Thomas leaned forward, interest genuine now. "What kind of assignment?" "The kind that doesn't officially exist." I produced a manila folder stamped with top security markings, sliding it across. "I need someone I can trust, utterly willing to bend rules for the greater good." "You know you can count on me, sir." "I'm hoping so." The documents inside were Eugene's masterpieces, fabricated intel irresistible to foreign buyers, laced with traceable markers. This requires absolute discretion. One leak could spark an international crisis. Study them here, no copies, no notes, no discussions with anyone, not even your wife. Thomas nodded, eyes widening at the apparent gold mine, oblivious to the noose tightening. "This is significant," he murmured, "which is why I'm trusting you. And one more thing, stay late Thursday. We're meeting a Langley contact crucial to success." "Of course, sir, whatever you need." As he left, a cold satisfaction settled over me. The fish had bitten, now to reel him in. But that evening, Vicky's unusual enthusiasm over dinner set my instincts on edge. Thomas mentioned you're on to something big, she said casually, her fork pausing. Thomas talks too much, I replied, watching her closely, the years of shared glances now poisoned. He's just excited to be involved. He looks up to you, you know. I cut my steak, precisely masking the storm within. And what else does Thomas confide in you about my work? Her fork halted midair. I don't know what you mean. I met her gaze. You two are close. I'm sure he shares all sorts. The air thickened with unspoken accusations. We're friends, Keelan, that's all. Friends, I echoed slowly. One way to put it. The next morning, I finalized a trap accessing base surveillance to plant implicating evidence, hidden in the fake intel details of a phony coup framing Thomas as a conspirator when traced back. Eugene's call confirmed, your boy took the bait. He's shopping the intel. Timeline 72 hours. Perfect. 40 years of service had led to this, my wife and protege, unraveling everything I'd built. But I'd never lost a battle, and this one, guarding my final legacy, would be no exception. Thursday evening descended with an unseasonable warmth, the air thick as I sat in my office shadows stretching across Fort Braxton, like fingers closing around a throat. I reviewed the final threads of my plan, heart steady, despite the adrenaline humming in my veins. 40 years had taught me patience in the hunt. Thomas would arrive soon for our fabricated CIA meeting, blind to how I'd orchestrated his every step, turning his greed into his undoing. The door opened and Thomas entered, his confidence a brittle shell. Where's our Langley friend? He asked, scanning the empty room. Delayed, I replied without glancing up from my paperwork, savoring the tension building like a coiled spring. Security concerns. There's chatter about a leak in our operation. His jaw tightened almost imperceptibly, a tell I'd spotted in countless briefings. What kind of chatter? The kind that leads to court-martial for treason. I lifted my eyes, locking onto his with the predatory focus of an old warrior. Classified info leaves trails, Thomas digital fingerprints. Sir, I'm not sure what you're suggesting. Not suggesting, Major, stating facts. I rose my height, casting a shadow over him, the weight of betrayal fueling my resolve. Someone in my inner circle's been feeding intel to foreign agents. That someone's about to learn betrayal has consequences. His composure fractured, sweat beading on his brow. Colin, I can explain. Explain what's selling secrets. Sleeping with my wife while stabbing me and our country in the back, thinking I was too old and oblivious to notice. The words sliced the air like a bayonet, decades of suppressed emotion surging, but I reined it in, strategy my anchor. He stepped back, hand twitching toward his sidearm. I wouldn't, I warned quietly. You're deep enough without assaulting a superior. You can't prove anything. Done. Can I? A cold smile crept across my face, chilling even me. Eugene Davidson's documentation is thorough, bank records, calls, photos. Your Moscow handlers will fume when they realize the intel was fake. His face drained of color. You set me up. I gave you rope. You hanged yourself. I leaned in, voice a whisper. Did you think I wouldn't investigate? I've hunted enemies for 40 years. You're not my toughest. What do you want? Justice without lawyers or deals. My phone buzzed Eugene's text. Package 2 delivered. Standing paper. What's package 2? Thomas demanded, peering over. Your wife. Blood fled his face. Sarah, what does she have to do with this? Everything. You involved her in your espionage, money laundering through her consulting firm, overseas clients paying premiums for services. He lunged, but I seized his wrist with reflexes sharpened by experience, twisting until he yelped. Sarah's innocent. So was my nation when you sold it out. I shoved him back. She'll explain to a jury, and your kids 8 and 10 will face child protective services. You bastard, he hissed. My children. Should have thought of them before treason. The office phone rang. I answered, eyes fixed on him. Richmond. Sir General Atkins, need you and Major Delgado in my office now. Situation brewing. On our way, sir. I hung up, smiling at his terror. Showtime. General Atkins's office at 68 felt cramped with 4 dark-suited FBI agents exuding authority. Thomas trailed me, pale and trembling. Gentlemen, Atkins began gravely, his age-worn eyes sharp with the suspicion that comes from too many years in command. These are FBI counterintelligence. Serious breach. Agent Jim Medina stepped forward, thin and calculating. Major Delgado, you're under arrest for espionage, treason, conspiracy against the U.S. Thomas's knees buckled. This is insane. I haven't. Medina displayed a tablet, 2 million from Foreign Services, classified docs, calls to enemy agents. Those were fake. Colonel Richmond gave them. All eyes turned to me. I held steady. I assigned classified materials. Sharing them was his choice, his crime. You set me up, Thomas shouted. A trap. Medina signaled restraints. Confession noted. As they cuffed him, he pleaded, "What about Sarah, my kids, you said?" "They'll face consequences if involved," I said coldly. "Depends on cooperation." Atkins watched confusion deepening his lined face. "Colin, your role here. I suspected leaks weeks ago, gave fabricated intel to test markers confirmed when it surfaced abroad. My explanation was rehearsed seamless. Risky, Medina noted. Could have compromised ops. Calculated, contained. No real lost trader exposed." As they dragged Thomas out, he yelled, "Check surveillance, his home, more to this." The door slammed. Atkins poured bourbon with shaking hands, his elderly suspicion lingering. 20 years knowing that man. How'd I miss it? "Evil hides in plain sight, sir," I replied. "Makes it deadly." General Atkins' office seemed smaller, charged with the weight of authority from the 4 FBI agents flanking us. Thomas entered beside me, his face ghostly, hands quivering like leaves in a storm. "Gentlemen," Atkins intoned, his voice heavy with the gravity of his 68 years. "These are FBI counterintelligence. We've got a grave security breach." Agent Medina advanced, his eyes sharp as a blade. "Major Delgado, you're under arrest for espionage, treason, and conspiracy against the United States." Thomas nearly collapsed. "This is madness. I haven't done anything." Medina unveiled a tablet, $2 million from Foreign Services, classified documents in your possession, calls to enemy agents. Those docs were fabricated. Colonel Richmond handed them to me. Eyes shifted to Mondon. I held firm, the strategist in me unmoved. I provided materials for his duties. Sharing them unauthorized, that's his treason. "You trapped me," Thomas roared as agents restrained him. "Confession accepted," Medina said coolly. In cuffs, Thomas turned desperate. "What about Sarah, my children you mentioned?" "They'll confront repercussions if complicit," I replied icily. "Their cooperation decides the depth." Atkins observed, his aged brow furrowed in growing doubt. "Call and clarify your involvement." "I sensed leaks weeks back. Instead of unproven claims, I fed fake intel with trackers. When it hit enemy hands, suspicions confirmed. My words flowed, practiced, a shield of logic." "Extremely hazardous," Medina remarked. "Potential for real compromise. Risk assessed, contained. No authentic data, lost a traitor unmasked." As Thomas was hauled away pleading, "Check footage, his home, there's more." The door sealed his cries. Atkins poured bourbon, hands unsteady, his veteran suspicion evident. 20 years with that man, how could I misjudge? "Evil conceals behind trusted faces, sir," I said. "That's its peril." Later, arriving home, I found Vicky pacing the living room, phone to ear. Can't reach him anywhere. He was due to call hours ago. She hung up, spotting me, anxiety etching deeper lines on her face, now marked by the toll of our 35 years, hollow cheeks, threads of gray in her hair. "Thomas has been arrested," I stated flatly. She dropped her phone. "What? For what?" Espionage, treason, peddling secrets to foreign powers. I poured a drink, scrutinizing her, the sting of our eroded bond twisting inside. He's been at it for years. Impossible, she whispered, but her voice cracked. Thomas would never. My tone sharpened, a dangerous undercurrent. How well do you know him, Vicky? Well enough to vouch against treason. Confusion and fear battled in her expression, age amplifying her vulnerability. What are you implying? How my wife defends my deputy's character so fiercely. Color vanished from her face. I meant he seems decent. Or does he? To me, he's a schemer who seduced a married woman while betraying his nation. I set my glass down deliberately. Birds of a feather, perhaps. Colin, whatever you think. I know it all. The affair lies betrayal. She opened her mouth. I silenced her with a raised hand. Now what to do? Thomas faces life in prison or execution. His family loses everything, homestanding future. Vicky sank into a chair, trembling. What do you want? The truth. How long feeding him intel? What else? Shared missions, plans? I didn't know he was selling. We were just talking. Tears streamed down her weathered cheeks. I love him. There it was, the raw admission born of decades of quiet discontent in our aging union. My laugh emerged, bitter, laced with profound sorrow. The truth at last. I fetched a folder from my study, placing it before her. Divorce papers, signed tonight. And if I refuse, my smile was glacial. Same charges as Thomas. Prosecutors eye accomplices, even unwitting. Her hands shook, signing the pen, scratching like finality. You've ruined us. No, I corrected, satisfaction mingling with ache. You did, choosing betrayal. I'm merely enforcing consequences. Watching her, I reflected. Justice wore many guises: uniformed law, nocturnal shadows, or to self-destruction via greed. In my strategy, they'd woven their own end. 2 weeks later, I stood before a closed session of the Senate Intelligence Committee, delivering testimony on the Delgado espionage case under the harsh glare of institutional lights. The senators leaned in gravely as I detailed the breach in my containment efforts. My voice steady, despite the emotional undercurrent 40 years of service distilled into this moment of accountability. Colonel Richmond, Senator Keith Barnett said, leaning forward, your quick thinking averted a catastrophic failure. The nation owes you gratitude. I was merely fulfilling my duty, sir. I replied, the weight of my age lending gravitas, though inside the sting of personal loss fueled my resolve. After the hearing, I met Eugene at a secure spot outside Washington, his 60-year-old frame as unyielding as ever. His expression darkened. Thomas is talking, trying to deal by implicating your wife. What's he claiming? That Vicky was willing, actively seeking classified info to pass him. Painting her as co-conspirator, not victim. Eugene paused. Evidence backs it. Recordings show her probing your mission's briefings, 5 years minimum. 5 years of revelation hit like a delayed explosion, eroding further the remnants of our 35-year marriage. A chasm widened by time and neglect. My strategy had anticipated this, but the depth of her involvement deepened the ache. And the timeline for charges against her. 2 weeks, maybe 3. She's lawyered up, but evidence doesn't vanish. I gazed at the Virginia countryside, thoughts on my waning career. Thomas thought himself clever, sacrificing Vicky to save his skin. Foolish, he was handing me the final lever. He's giving me what I need for the endgame. Eugene arched a brow. More? Thomas shattered my marriage, betrayed our nation, risked lives for profit. Prisons too merciful. I turned, expression forged in winter's chill. Time, he learns, crossing a man with nothing left invites ruin. That evening, an encrypted message lit my secure phone. Blackbird requests consultation. Payment as discussed. Blackbird, my prized asset. A prison contact indebted from Afghanistan ops decades ago. I replied, approved. Proceed with extreme prejudice. Morning news broke Thomas Delgado suffered a cell fall injuries, demanding months of recovery. Officials probed, but inmates saw nothing typical. Satisfaction coursed through me, strategic precision, paying off though a flicker of remorse touched my soul, quickly quashed by justice's demand. Meanwhile, Vicky's arrest splashed headlines. Military spouse charged in espionage conspiracy. The media storm I'd engineered ensured maximum shame complementing her legal woes. As I watched coverage, my phone rang. "Richmond, it's Howard Atkins. We must talk." 30 minutes later, I faced my commanding general, noting his troubled 68-year-old visage. "Delgado's case complicates," he began. "Questions on investigation protocols." "What questions?" "From senators wary of unchecked ops." He rubbed Temple's age, amplifying his doubt. "Whispers your methods were overreach." I kept neutral, drawing on lifetime experience. "I halted a breach, exposed a traitor. If that's excess, our foes are mightier than assumed." "Not what I mean, Colin. Talk of you engineering it all from start." His eyes bored and suspicion etched deep. "If I possessed such foresight, I'd helm the CIA, not brief them." I countered smoothly, my seasoned poise deflecting. My life's in tatters, reputation scrutinized, careers twilight shadowed. Convenient for whom? He had no retort. After pause, investigation looms, internal, perhaps congressional. "Prepare." "I'm always prepared, sir," I said, leveraging my age's wisdom. Distinguishes veterans from novices. Leaving, I drove to Eugene with fresh intel. "Thomas grows nervous, seeking another deal, alleging your Afghan activities." My face hardened. "What activities?" "Fishing for leverage, war crimes," claims witnesses. Of course, Thomas, ever inventive with lies. Public accusations could cling, committees eager to topple heroes for show. He was deadlier than anticipated, aiming to dismantle my legacy. Then escalate, I decided. Teach him threats versus consequences. Eugene shifted uneasily. "Colin, if you're planning justice," I cut in. "Systems, sluggish, political, lenient, sometimes demands directness." My smile arctic. "If caught, I'll share Thomas's fate at last." The Pentagon briefing room hushed as I wrapped my presentation on Middle Eastern intelligence assessments, the weight of 40 years' expertise hanging in every word. Secretary of Defense Anthony nodded approvingly, official scribbling notes. "Excellent, Colonel," he said. "Your insights are why we need seasoned minds in Washington. One last vital contribution." Afterwards, CIA Deputy Director Guy Kirk approached. "Walk with me," he murmured. We strolled corridors lined with portraits of history's military titans, a reminder of legacies I'd strive to match. "Chatter about your situation," Kirk began. "Delgado case, your wife's arrest. Some see deeper layers." "There always are," I replied evenly, the emotional toll of recent weeks simmering beneath my composed exterior. "The agency prizes creative thinkers several moves ahead, but discretion is key." He smiled faintly. "Offering or warning?" "Both. Position opening, head of a counterintelligence task force. Advisory role, international scope, resources, minimal oversight. Suits your experience, no field work required at your stage." The CIA dangled protection for service. I grasped the implication they needed clean handling of my mess. Time to consider until complications resolve. His words echoed as I sat home reviewing Eugene's files on Thomas's legal maneuvers. He was prepping wild claims about my conduct in Afghanistan 30 years back during ops long buried, hoping to muddy waters, create doubt. My blood chilled. He'd destroy my twilight legacy to claw freedom. My secure phone buzzed, package 3 delivered. Timetable advanced. Eugene's final safeguard, faked evidence of Thomas plotting Russian defection, Moscow transfers Eastern Europe tickets, encrypted Russian comms. Undeniable from prison. Next morning, Atkins called urgently. "Call-in problem. Thomas Delgado's dead. No shock, only frigid satisfaction. How? Suicide, they say, hanging in his cell. Atkins's tone drips suspicion. Convenient right before testifying on your alleged misconduct. General implying, not implying facts. He dies pre-accusations. Your wife arrested mid-divorce. No coincidences, Colin. My voice held firm. Bad choices yield bad ends. He betrayed wrecked families, guilt overwhelms. If I doubt that, pursue investigations, but weigh questioning a decorated veteran's loyalty, son's proof. Tension crackled as we hung. Atkins suspected, but politics restrained him. Later, another call, Vicky's lawyer, Philip Thompson. Your wife wants to speak info relevant to both. What info? Could reshape the case. Meet, I pondered at Vicky desperate. Thomas gone probe closing. Revelation or gambit. One meeting, federal courthouse, marshal supervising, and tomorrow noon. Hanging up pieces aligned perfectly. Thomas's death neutralized his threats. Vicky's desperation might seal closure. Justice wore face of court's solemnity, prison's harshness, or betraying the wrong man. Yet as I anticipated our confrontation, unease stirred. What hidden card did Vicky hold among? The federal courthouse meeting room was a sterile void, fluorescent lights, casting unforgiving shadows on the metal table, amplifying the chill that seeped into my bones. I sat across from Vicky, noting how incarceration had ravaged her dark circles, hollowing her eyes, cheeks, sunken gray hair pulled back severely, her once gracious demeanor eroded by the grind of custody into something frail and aged beyond our shared years. Her lawyer, Philip Thompson, flanked her marshals, vigilant in the corners. The air hummed with tension, my strategic mind already mapping escape routes and contingencies. Though the real battle was internal, the ache of 35 years dissolving into this confrontation. Thank you for coming, Vicky said quietly, her voice a rasp, eyes meeting mine with a mix of defiance and weariness. I waited in silence, the strategist in me, patient, letting her reveal her hand. I know you orchestrated this, she continued, leaning forward slightly. Thomas's arrest, my charges, you manipulated us into ruin. Did I? My tone neutral, masking the surge of emotions, betrayal's bitter residue mingled with tactical satisfaction. Or did your choices lead here? Her composure wavered. You fed Thomas fake intel knowing he'd sell. It pushed him to treason. I entrusted a subordinate with materials. His actions were his own. Inside, I calculated she was probing for cracks, but I'd fortified my position. You're a monster, she whispered, the word hanging like a verdict. I leaned in, voice a hushed blade. I'm a soldier who found his wife in deputy dismantling his oaths. What did you expect? Quiet acceptance. Thompson cleared his throat. Mrs. Richmond has intel on further breaches, could reframe this case. My expression unchanged, but internally alarm sounded. What leverage? I know your CIA ties, Vicky said, a faint smile emerging. Eugene Davidson, Black Ops funding, off-books missions in Afghanistan 30 years back. Thomas wasn't alone selling secrets. You've run unauthorized ops for decades. Cold gripped me, though I held steady. Eugene's gray area work, my career's backbone, now a vulnerability. Intriguing theory. Proof. Thomas kept records, insurance, bank details, ops logs, names, dates, hid them pre-arrest. The room silenced, save the lights buzz. He's dead, but I'm the only one who knows where. She wasn't bluffing. Desperation sharpened her. What do you want? Charges dropped, clean divorce settlement, Thomas's children shielded from more harm. Assuming my influence, she pressed. Guy Kirk's keen on containing this. The trap snapped shut. Her homework, likely with Thomas, exposed my delicate balance. Thompson added, forget her knowledge for leniency and charges. Or She tells congressional probe's rogue officer using position for unsanctioned ops destroying opposition. Silence stretched. She'd pierced my armor, those old ops, a double-edged sword. Need calls, I said finally. Of course, but offer expires in 24 hours, after nothing left to lose. Leaving plans swirled, she'd aired threatening a veteran, honed in elimination. That evening at our secure meet, I briefed Eugene. She knows you ops Kirk, he cursed. How much? Enough for trouble. Demands deal drop charges, divorce kid protection. Kirk could arrange, but precedent's risky blackmail once invites more. Precisely. I studied him. Some issues need permanent fixes. Call in federal custody. Thomas thought prison safe. How'd that end? Unease crossed his face. Different, she's high profile. Or tragic suicide, shamed woman, life sentence looming, chooses escape. My expression unyielding. Eliminating a national security threat. Vicky chose blackmailing the government. Next morning, Atkins called urgently. Call in office, now situation. I arrived, he paced grim. Vicky Richmond, dead in cell. Satisfaction flooded, masked as shock. How apparent suicide bed sheets. His stare pierced. Second custody death tied to you. Raises flags. Flags ending careers, sparking probes suggesting house cleaning with connections. Before response door opened, Kirk, in an unfamiliar suit, entered. General need Colonel Richmond. Operations beyond your purview. I sat alone at the metal table awaiting judgment, the culmination of my strategic maneuvers hanging in the balance. Guy Kirk entered, followed by a tall, silver-haired man exuding unassailable authority. Colonel Richmond, Kirk said, meet Deputy Director of Operations Cameron Solis. I stood and saluted. Solis, one of intelligence's powerhouses, commanded, sit, much to discuss. Kirk activated a recorder. This is documented for security. Understand the stakes for your career and freedom. I do. Solis's spread photo, Thomas and Vicky dead within days, linked to me and ops they could have compromised. I stayed neutral, heart a steady drumbeat of resolve mixed with the reflective calm of age. We know you engineered Delgado's exposure, Solis continued. Fabricated intel, surveillance arrest, brilliant counterintelligence pivot. Duty demanded it. Indeed, but you exceeded his prison death, your wife's suicide, no accidents. I met his gaze. Traitors face consequences. I can't dictate justice system's outcomes. Kirk chuckled darkly. Justice or Eugene Davidson's network? They knew, they'd monitored. Not implying. Solis rose facing the flag. 40 years ago, you were a sergeant with unconventional genius. We've watched your rise, innovation, ruthlessness against threats. We have a proposition. He turned intense. World's evolving. Traditional methods falter. Need operators beyond boundaries, eliminating threats pre-catastrophe. Kirk slid a document. New role, senior advisor to a domestic counterintelligence task force. Resources, vast oversight, minimal full autonomy, no field demands fitting your experience. I scanned power to safeguard what I'd served, a fresh chapter. Catch. New mission. Other Delgados exist, citizens selling out for gain. Legal systems sluggish, political. We need beyond law handling. Quiet process, not prosecution, but recruitment via my actions. Congressional probe Atkins's concerns. Kirk smiled coldly. General Atkins retires next month, health issues. Probe concludes Delgado lone actor, your exposure commended. Wife suicide guilt from aiding unwittingly. You're the victim. Solis sat fervent. Full protection from Delgado case fallout. Clean slate, unlimited means for American interests. One condition, this never occurred. Methods classified forever. I signed without pause, the pen's scratch, a liberation freedom from past chains toward a brighter horizon. 2 hours later in Atkins's office, as he cleared his desk, the theater unfolded. The general stripped my medals, he barked per script. Traitor disobeyed orders. I stood at attention, knowing it was performance for any ears. Nothing to say, loser. His assigned lines stung less. With betrayers gone, my path cleared. One call. Lawyer too late. I dialed Solace's direct line from memory. Minutes later, a helicopter thrummed outside. Through the window, Solace emerged, striding in with command. You're relieved, sir, he told Datkins, whose face paled, the script twisted. Vicky would have paled too, but she was gone. In the corner stood Agent Jacqueline from CIA Domestic Ops, witnessing my final trial. Helicopter waits, Colonel, Solace said. Assignment starts now. I saluted Atkins, processing his abrupt end. Honor serving under you, sir. Walking to the chopper, I reflected. Thomas thought betrayal cost-free. Vicky manipulation, her salvation. Both learned I never forgive. The aircraft lifted into afternoon skies, Fort Braxton shrinking with old life's remnants. Storm clouds loomed distant, but satisfaction filled me. Enemies erased, country, shielded power gained beyond dreams. Justice isn't forgiveness. It's ensuring betrayers reap choices harvest. In my twilight, I'd mastered delivering it, emerging freer, future aglow with purpose. This marks our story's close. If this tale of resilience and hard-won freedom resonates, inspiring you to reclaim your self-respect, hit like, subscribe for more revenge sagas, and comment your thoughts or personal stories below. Let's build a community of strength. Click the next video on screen now, and I'll see you there.